We are at Kieran's Irish Pub. What do you call this route, Peter?
This is the Titanic route.
The Titanic route. Well, that's optimistic.
That's what we would see.
That's awesome. You know, I actually, by the way, I'm Jim Souhan. This is Souhan Unfiltered at SouhanUnfiltered.com. You can listen to it via that website or via iTunes subscription, free subscription, or via iHeartRadio. My guest tonight, Neal Justin, longtime TV critic for Star Tribune.
Long time. That's hard to read.
Long time.
When you say long time, you say
I do. Yeah, I'm trying to be polite, but if you will say, we'll make this an rare honor show if you want to do it that way.
Very good.
So Neal Justin, also Peter Gillen, owner of Kieran's, and owner of, it's really for sports car, I wish I could. Titanic Road. Where was I recently that I toured a Titanic? Oh, Vegas. I went to the Titanic exhibit in Vegas, and they had all the artifacts, all the stuff that they dredged up from the bottom of the ocean after many years of searching, and it was fascinating, and it was the most depressing job I've ever
seen. I mean, we have to be careful if it's actually real.
This one actually was and that was my thought too. I mean, what the hell is this doing in Vegas if it's real? But it was real, and
even the iPhone you found it?
Well, it was only an iPhone 4, so you know.
Okay.
We only have Peter for a few minutes here. Neal and I are going to talk televised sports, the future of televised sports, sports-themed television shows like Friday Night Lights. We're also going to talk about some current events in sports in general, and one of my favorite topics, maybe my favorite non-sports topic, serial TV. I'm addicted to serial TV. But while we have Mr. Killen, anything you want to tell us about the business these days? Any specials, any events, any live music?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things going on, but obviously, at the minute we're big, we always are, but the Wild obviously are huge for our little pub over in St. Paul, Olympics. So go Wild tonight. They're actually going to head to the game and cheer them on because I missed the last game at home, so I think tonight when I go, they're going to win. So super excited about it. The Twins are obviously really starting to pick up some momentum, so we're really excited about it too. So apart from that, it's typical Minnesota business. If you're in the bar business, it's like you want the weather and teams to do well and things will be pretty good.
Well, you know what would be awesome for all of us sitting here at this table? If the Twins actually had some sustainability here. They could actually be interesting. There's nothing better. I mean, I love that ballpark. And to go over there and watch meaningful games, and for my business, having a meaningful baseball team to cover in the summer is a godsend. And obviously for you, having the big old patio here, you have the ideal spot for Twins fans.
Yeah, we have. We're happy to be here, and it's all dependent on the team, you know. So people are excited about the Twins are competitive. If they're not competitive, you know, they're getting big 9-1, top of 7. People just go home.
Leave rookie loss alone.
No, trust me, I'm the biggest optimist when it comes to the Twins. So they're doing great. Keep it up, and it's the way is up.
Yeah, absolutely. I had Glenn Perkins out, and actually I had Terry Ryan out on your big stage here this winter, and I had Glenn Perkins over at local recently. You know, Perkins has been telling me he felt like this was a different team. And having been in the clubhouse all spring, I've covered the Twins for about 25 years now. I know it's a different atmosphere. And atmosphere might get overrated. Everybody loves statistics these days, but being around Mahler and being around Troy Hunter in that clubhouse this spring, it felt different. And now it's like
it's funny that it felt different with two veterans.
Yeah.
I mean, it does seem new, even though they've been around a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it weird for you, Peter, to be rooting for teams that you didn't grow up with? I mean, hockey and baseball aren't exactly
the
national sports.
Great, and I think Jim and I touched on it the last time we kind of had this little chit-chat. I mean, I really had to kind of quickly learn about sports. Knew nothing about it. I grew up in football, as we call it in the rest of the world, but soccer, as you guys call it here.
Unfortunately, that is the way we say it too. Soccer. That's the way we say it. Soccer.
As Europeans say, football. It's a little bit more. Just always what it is. But you know, again, for me, it was like absolutely. You open up a bar across the street from Twin Stadium, baseball stadium. You open up a bar across the street from hockey, and like. What? And it's a quick, funny story. So a few years ago, I was back in home. It was kind of like what do you call the division like underneath the NHL? What's the next one?
Juniors.
So it was like, man, probably going to piss somebody off here in the
That's all right,
UK.
that's what we do.
So like in Belfast, the team's called Belfast Giants, and they're pretty competitive actually in the UK. There's maybe 10 teams in the UK, Belfast and Cardiff and stuff like that. But I said there's one more Christmas, and I told my brother, I said, I'm going to see a Belfast Giants game, which would be a bit like going to see one of the differences. And he said, where do you want to sit? And I go, center ice, up close to the glass, and he goes, here comes the jockey fan. And I'm just there.
I do have a question for you because I've always thought that baseball would be the most difficult sport to learn at a level. Because every other sport, it's two teams facing each other, trying to gain ground on each other one way or another. You're trying to move the ball, puck, whatever, toward the other goal.
Right.
Baseball is the hottest sport in the world. I mean, it's a diamond-shaped field where you can play balls out of bounds, where one of the most important players in the field is sitting out of bounds, the catcher. A 500-foot foul ball gives you nothing, and then a little bleeding ground ball that in grades 2 fielders ends up getting it. It's a very strange game. How long did it take you to actually feel like you knew it?
I haven't quite figured it all out yet. I mean, I'm working on it. I'd say maybe a good 45% there, after 16 years in Twin Cities. But I mean, the reality is, growing up, the game we played at school was called Grinders, which is kind of like baseball, dumbed down tremendously. So I get the concept, but again, some of the I was at the game this afternoon. It's like some of the bits and pieces. I'm like, so what? It's like, so I'm still learning, but that's good.
Peter always asks, which one of the twins?
Well, not quite that.
But I remember, Thomas Boswell was a great baseball writer in the Washington Post, and I wrote a lot of really good stuff when I lived in Baltimore. And he actually wrote a piece bringing a European who works in baseball for a baseball game, and the guy had no idea what the hell was going on. Just had no. I think it's the most difficult thing to grasp. The cool thing about baseball, though, is you can enjoy it on so many different levels. You can enjoy being outside, you can enjoy the home runs, or you can actually keep a pitch game.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. My friends come over, relatives come over, sit in the game because it's such a cool experience, and they're like, how long is it? 3+ hours, it's like, yeah, and then you keep asking me what the rules are, and I'm like, well, and then you just don't get it, so it's kind of like, you just gotta go with the flow, It's like, if you can learn and you want to watch a good football game or a hurling game, same thing.
Can't hear myself what they're saying.
It's just yin and yang.
There's something to enjoy about it, though. Jim, I don't know if you follow rugby at all, but I've gotten into rugby through our mutual friends, Kieran and Souhan. We used to go to Europe every summer and watch a match. I love it, but I still don't get everything about it. I mean, there's some tricks and fouls and so on that bewilder me.
And since you're wearing a J.J. Taylor shirt there, I will mention our promotion. Every time we do a show at a Terra Pub, that's the local and Kieran's in Minneapolis and the rookie in St. Paul, we give away a free Guinness to the first 50 people to show up and retweet or favorite us and do something with social media with us. And I see you're drinking your free Guinness. I'm impressed you were able to You were able to land a free Guinness.
It was. And again, it's quality control for me. It's really,
I'm always
I take my business very seriously, so it's all about the quality control.
This is the rare show I'm not drinking a Guinness because I actually have to work later. Usually that's kind of my day.
Jim, I'll do yours.
Please do. Before I know you need to get going.
Yeah, I got to run.
Any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to offer?
Let's go for a while tonight. We need to get this one, obviously, as we all know, but I feel pretty good. The Conor Murray's great hockey kind of critics, or not critics, but experts that they got to win more.
I would think this would be one desperation things to help you.
Jim, thanks for me on again. I think the last time that I was on, you were done with him. It's always good to
Great talking to you.
Good to see you, man. Good luck.
Talk to you soon, Peter. Thank you. That's Peter Keller, owner of Kieran's. That's where we are tonight. Again, at Kieran's, come by. You can win a free Guinness. And now Neal and I are going to break it down. I can't wait to get the serial TV part of this. Sure. But let's start with something you mentioned to me when we were corresponding before the show, which is sports broadcasting has changed so much. And the rights fees have become so astronomical. Where are we heading for? And when did this surprise you?
I think it's only going to go up and up. And, what has surprised me is how quickly television is changing, especially with networks and cable. Netflix and Amazon have really come through the door very rapid speed. I remember when HBO started, it really took them 10 years to really make an impact. These guys are making an impact very quickly. And the reason I bring that up and how it's related to sports is that the networks are losing traction, even cable's losing traction. The only thing that is solid is live sports. It's something you can tape it and watch it later. You binge watches a season of the NFL. They want to watch it live, whether it's in a bar or in their home or at a friend's house. And so networks are willing to pay a fortune, and cable networks like Fox Sports are willing to pay a fortune to get anything they can get their hands on that people are forced to watch live. And I wouldn't be surprised if 10 years from now, most about everything that you see outside of streaming is going to be news, sports, and other live events like award shows and stuff like that you really need to watch.
That's a great point, because I mean that's one of the reasons for the rise in podcasts is the advertising tends to be subtle, a little more embedded. And every TV show, people skip the commercials. They do, unless you throw a party for a special Grey's Anatomy or something. I don't know. But people are so good at avoiding advertising. And sports is the one thing where you put on the TV and you don't care about it. You make a sandwich during the ads, or you have a beer and you talk to somebody next to you during the ads. People don't turn off sports ads. That's why it's so lucrative.
And I think it's one of the reasons why we were just talking about soccer. So it's one of the reasons I think soccer's had a problem taking off in this country, because advertisers can't figure out how to make money out of it.
Right.
They're used to it in Europe and around the world, taking the long break in the world. But there's not really those breaks, and until the game finds a way to make room for advertising, I think it's going to have a real hard time getting it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm stunned by the amount of money that people are willing to pay. Do you think there's an upper limit to that? Do you think we've come anywhere close to reaching it, or is that going to continue to be astronomical?
I think it's going to. You mean in terms of cable or going to games?
I mean, I guess I mean everything. I mean the fact that networks are willing to pay what they're willing to pay to sports leagues, the fact that advertisers are willing to pay the freight at very high rates. You see an end in sight.
I don't, until somebody starts losing money, and nobody's losing money. I think the interesting thing is going to be as we get into this new world of cable, where you can pick part and parcel of what you want to watch. I mean, there are a lot of people that have cable just for sports, but they've also got to get Lifetime, the country music channel, VH1 Classic, and they're not watching that. I think we're going to see a change in that once we get over some legal hurdles, so that you can just get ESPN, ESPN2, and Fox Sports. And I'm really interested to see what Fox Sports 1 does. They're spending a lot of money, and I think we're really going to see their impact next year. I think they have all the major golf tournaments starting next year. Is that right?
Yes.
That's a lucrative audience. That's a lot of money. But I think the demographics that watch golf will pay off for Fox Sports. I've been to their studios out in LA. It's tremendous. I mean, it's really state of the art. It's very exciting. So they're going to be major players, I think. And the interesting thing to me is how much networks are going to spend. Just talking the other day, I'm sure you've been talking about it too. The big boxing match that was a flop.
Yes.
By any stretch of the imagination. Anybody who follows boxing even a little bit should have known it was going to be a flop. But I remember you and I are roughly the same age. Boxing on ABC, was a big deal. It was free. You knew all the fighters, and that just doesn't happen anymore. And I think that's one reason that sport is really hurting. Now you've got WWF or Ultimate Fighting. It's free, and so I think that's one of the reasons that it's becoming more popular than boxing.
You bring up Fox Sports 1, as a sports writer and someone who grew up with ESPN and watching the Big East and watching Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann and people who are actually really good on the air and really funny and really sharp.
Yeah.
I'm disgusted by what ESPN has become in so many ways. SportsCenter at best bores me, at worst insults me. Whatever the Bayless Stephen A. Smith show is, it turns my stomach.
Right.
It's become. And maybe it's inevitable. Maybe when your audience is as large as theirs is, you have to play with the lowest common denominator. but I hate what it's become. You're a TV critic. You tell me what you think.
Well, I think you can say the same thing about Fox News and CNN. It's become a circus.
Yeah.
It's become a circus. And, you know, when ESPN started, those guys were sports nuts. They weren't the best looking people. They might not have been the most articulate, but they loved sports, and you could tell that. And their enthusiasm was addictive. Now it's more about a pretty face and can you stir things up. Let's have a lot more time before. I mean, you know, ESPN used to show, you know, dog races and obstacle courses. That's right. And they just filled it with sports. Now there's got to be controversy. I agree with you on Stephen Smith and the other shows where people are arguing all the time. You know, you could say that's happened in sports radio too.
It has.
There are still very good people. I think, you know, you mentioned Dan Patrick. I think he does a great job.
He does.
Well, that's a bit of a circus too at times. But gosh, there's so much to talk about, you know. And when you do it right, when you talk about sports right, it can be great for a way. I've mentioned many times, I think, Real Sports with Brian Gumbel is one of the best news magazine shows out there. I think ESPN's 30 for 30 is an excellent series.
And I think Outside the Lines does a really good job in general.
In general. So, because the great thing, and you know this, Jim, and you do such a great job in your columns reflecting this, sports can be an analogy to so many things, and a window into so many conversations, whether it be about drugs or sexual abuse,
Racism,
yeah, absolutely. Racism right on top of it.
gender gap, equality gap, income gap, everything.
And that's what you do so well as a sports writer. That's what Real Sports does so well. And at times ESPN. So, you know, the opportunities are there. And I think those channels do a decent job of it. But you're right, it's not all great.
You know, the great thing about podcasts is I actually get to know people on them. It's not just about the topic of the day. So let's kind of backtrack here. Just tell me about where were you born, where'd you grow up, and how did you become so interested in TV and pop culture?
Can I lie down on a couch?
You may, but only if you're drinking. That's the rule on the show.
That's after. I grew up in Bay City, Iowa, just a couple hours south of here. And my first journalism job outside of working for the high school paper was as a sports reporter. Back then, we still did, box scores and agate and all
My
that
first
stuff.
job in the business was as an agate clerk, which probably nobody knows what that means, so I'll explain it. That means you were the person who typed in all the box scores, all the high school box scores, all the PGA money leaders. You typed in or reset all that stuff so it fit on the little page in the back.
Yep, that's what I did too. Every Friday and Saturday night. It was the only way I could stay out late. Was saying I had a job. And the worst part of the job was you took all the agates for high school football games. And it was up to the, I believe it was the home coach to call the score and give you a recap. Well, if they didn't call in because they lost, you had to call the house. We had all the numbers. And the worst thing that could happen is that the wife answered. Because the wife would be furious. Because it'd be midnight, you know. And you're just trying to get the score, and they would just be furious. But I remember, getting to do some reporting at that age and learning how dangerous it is to misspell somebody's name. You spell a high school kid's name wrong, your parents are all of it. Because that was a big deal, back in the 80s.
Getting your name in the paper actually used to mean something.
Oh, it really meant something. And if you misspelled a kid's name, you sure heard about it.
Glad you're bringing back so many memories, because not only was I an agate clerk, but I was also a high school reporter for like 4 or 5 years. And you're right, spelling the name sometimes it was all that mattered. All they wanted was their name spelled correctly in the newspaper. The fact that they scored a touchdown next to that made it week.
My first beat was Sunday night covering the soccer races. And that was a lot of fun. And I knew nothing about it. I still racing, but so I ended up covering the crowd a lot of times, and such a colorful group of fans, shall I say. But I was always interested in pop culture, and when I went to college at Northwestern, I worked as a movie critic for the weekly. And I got a job as a clerk, again, at the Chicago Tribune, opening up mail, this was before email, running the fax machine. Nobody knew. That was going to be the future of journalism.
Oh, fax
was the
machine?
fax.
Absolutely. It would
The
never
Chicago
be
Tribune
replaced.
put out an afternoon fax edition, and that was going to be it. Get ready. This is it. But I got to start freelancing at the Tribune, bugging the music critic there, and the film critic was Gene Siskel at the time. And I got to write 3 or 4 times a week, and that was my college job. That was a great opportunity. That's when the Chicago Tribune was the Chicago Tribune.
It was a great sports section.
It certainly was. And sadly, the Tribune is not what it used to be. A lot of people.
And in fact, you're bringing up a memory. It was Bob Verdi, the great Chicago sports writer, and also a wonderful guy. He retired a ways back. Now he is the historian for the Blackhawks, so he travels with the Blackhawks. I'll be seeing him later tonight.
Oh, that's great.
And the greatest thing, one of the great things in my, you're bringing back so many memories. I, like you, didn't follow my advisor's advice, which was, get a job at a small paper and do everything and hope you can land a big. I just went to the biggest paper that would give me a job, and I just got my foot in the door and did the crappiest jobs I could until somebody finally took mercy on me. But, so I remember in my first 10 years in the business, I was always in the newspaper library. Because you didn't have internet. So if you wanted to read what the other papers were like, you go to the library and look for every other, and you wouldn't get it until a week later. You'd go through every sports section, read every sports writer, read every columnist. And one of the things I always look forward to was the great contrast between Bob Verdi, the very understated, dry stylings of Bob Verdi, and then Bernie Lincecum, the classic poison pen, angry man columnist, and having those two on the same staff was cool.
Yeah. Now, that being said, after I was done with college, I continued to freelance, but then I did decide to go to a smaller paper.
Oh, did you? Okay.
And learn the craft. I hadn't really done a lot of serious news reporting, so I went to the Rockford Register-Star and Rockford, Illinois, and was a crime reporter for a couple of years. And with always the intent to get back into features, but I really thought that it was important to get that experience. And I covered, 1 year I covered 25 murders. The drug war was just starting in Rockford, and before Chicago kind of owned Rockford. But they were setting up on their own, which meant all these gangsters didn't know how to shoot. And they were high on crack, and they ended up shooting a lot of innocent people. So it was really, that year, it was Fortune magazine named us the worst city in America. Which, as a hard news reporter, is great.
Well, yeah,
it sounds gruesome, and it was. But it kept me really busy, and it helped me when I was able to come here to Minneapolis 23 years ago to have those bones. I think was really helpful. Both, I always tell young journalists, try your hand at sports. Do a couple years of sports in one way or another. Deadline writing, we were talking about the deadline writing you're going to have tonight. That would scare 92% of young journalists out there. You've been doing it for years. You do a very good job of it. You learn that. You learn, as we said, names, accuracy. I mean, the hours. Dealing with athletes is much harder than what I have to do. I mean, I have to deal with egotistical movie stars and TV people, but they're out to sell something. I mean, their money is invested in promoting themselves. That's not true with athletes. I mean, if you can swing a bat, it doesn't matter if you talk to the press.
If they're good, they don't need us.
Yeah, and they've learned to talk in cliches, I think, more so than actors. So if you can get a decent interview with an athlete or a coach, you've learned a lot. I mean, you can't just jump into it. I think it takes a long time. A lot of tricks. I'm sure you've learned a lot of tricks over the years. Especially because you're dealing, I deal with Hollywood people. If I slam a show, I don't see those guys the next day. Right. You're in the locker room the next day.
I'll be visiting with Thomas Vanek later.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. I mean,
good thing is he won't make the effort to cross the locker room to hit me, so I'll be safe.
Has anybody ever physically threatened you?
Chris Dolman and Henry Thomas threatened to kill me. But I didn't really take it too seriously, so it wasn't like I was walking around scared or anything. They threatened me. There haven't been many overt. There have been a lot of times when athletes have told a friend of theirs or a relative or a PR person, hey, go tell Souhan I'm going to kick his ass, something like that. I mean, that used to happen a lot. Frankly, what's happened, though, in the sports world is things have become more bland, but also safer, frankly. It used to be the wild, wild west. It used to be you walked into when I covered the Vikings, usually I was walking in there alone.
Yeah.
Maybe there's one other beat writer on the other side of the room, and maybe the TV people would pull a few people out to do these the silly interviews. Basically, I was walking in there having ripped them in paper back when they believed that the local paper determined the opinion of everybody who followed the team. They really did believe that.
Yeah.
So I would walk in, and my first 4 or 5 conversations would usually be arguments with people who were mad, and a couple of them, and they're all very large, and some of them tried to use physical intimidation, and that was my day.
Yeah.
Now, I think athletes are less interesting, they're more coached, they're more savvy, they grew up watching ESPN.
It's almost like they've gone to some camp.
Yeah, they know how to do it.
Yeah.
Which makes them less threatening, more polished, but also less interesting usually.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because, as I said, I interview a lot of actors, and I'm not, starstruck. But every once in a while, I get to interview an athlete because they're doing a TV show, whether it's the Williams sisters or John McEnroe, or I got to meet Gil Sayers, which was a big, big deal for me. He was a little before my time, but
Still.
I think he was one of the most graceful guys you've ever seen. It was poetry. And I get starstruck by athletes because it's a different world for me. So that's a lot of fun. And I think I see them when they're promoting a TV show, which is a little bit different than when they're usually retired by the time they get around to me. So I've had great interviews with athletes, but I imagine it's very different for working athlete.
Well, I mean, let's face it. In my business, 90% of the interviews are going to be crap. They're just going to be throw it away. It was nothing. You didn't say anything. It was all cliches. And that's why I don't always use quotes in my columns. Because I'm not going to fill up my column with crappy, boring, cliched quotes. But the great thing is the gyms are truly diamonds. And you get the right guy on the right day in the right mood. They can be, to me, I mean, the stereotype is the stupid jock. To me, the good ones are all really smart, even if not in a book smart way. There's a shrewdness, there's an innate intelligence of how things work and how you need to compete at the highest level that these people can be great. Honestly, 6 months ago, I didn't know what a podcast really was. I'd never really done one or listened to one. The great thing about the podcast is, I've had Glenn Perkins and Torrey Hunter and Eddie Guardado, people like that on, and Terry Ryan, telling me stuff that they wouldn't tell me in any other setting because they just get relaxed and talk for an hour. Some of the insights are amazing.
I was at a party in LA a few years ago, and Oprah was launching her network. So everybody, it was like the poker world. Everybody was gathered around Oprah. And of course, I was at the bar.
Of course, that goes without saying.
And right to the left of me walked up Mike Tyson. And we talked for about 40 minutes. Really smart guy. And really fun to talk to. I think some of these guys in the twilight years feel the pressure's off and feel free to talk. We talked about pigeons.
And also, at that point, they are promoting something.
That's right. Tyson didn't have to do that. He just had to beat the crap out of somebody.
Right.
And so I'm always pleasantly surprised by that because you're right. A lot of times it's very banal conversation that we have with celebrities.
My Mike Tyson story is, remember Kurt Brown from our newspaper?
Oh, sure.
Kurt and I were covering the run-up to the Super Bowl, the 1991 Super Bowl at the Metrodome, so we spent a couple of weeks in Washington covering the Redskins, because obviously the Redskins were going to be there, and trying to get to know Joe Gibbs and get stories on the team. And so one night we go out drinking in Georgetown, and we stay up really, really late, and we're walking to our car, whatever, it was 3 or 4 in the morning, and there's an attractive woman walking down this Georgetown street all alone, stumbling a little bit, maybe 2 blocks away from us. And a limousine pulls up next to her. And the driver starts trying to talk her into the car. She keeps saying, no. Well, finally, Mike got tired of waiting. And Mike Tyson pops out of the back and tries to talk her into the car. And she basically ran away. Mike had an interesting lifestyle, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a great one-man show he did that aired on HBO, Spike Lee directed.
Oh, right, yeah.
Brother. It's really good. He co-wrote it with his wife, and I highly recommend it. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Iron Mike, maybe? I don't know. It's a play off that.
Yeah, he's really captivating, and that's a tough thing to do in a one-man show. It's not an actor.
Right.
But very compelling stuff.
Let's talk a little bit now about my favorite topic, serial TV. We're not, frankly, there are times I get sick of sports, and I can't wait to go home and put on one of my favorite shows and catch up with it.
Sure.
So first of all, give me some of your favorites. Just off the top of your head.
Serialized shows?
Serialized shows.
Well, the best to me of all time was The Wire.
Yep, agreed.
A lot of people will say that and haven't seen it.
It's become a cliche.
It has.
But it's only become a cliche because it was so great that everybody latched on to it.
Yeah. David Simon, who created the show, wrote one of the best crime books ever, Homicide: Life on the Street.
Yes.
Another terrific series. Really, and by the way, he's a major baseball fan. I took him to a Twins game a couple years ago with him and his son. Wow. It was a lot of fun. He really knows the game well. And I wish he'd do a sports series. That would be fascinating. But I love The Wire. I grew up in Hill Street Blues.
Hill Street Blues, and for our younger listeners, Hill Street Blues was grounded.
It holds up tremendously well. I went back a couple summers ago and we watched the whole series. It is as gritty and raw and out there as anything today, perhaps even more so.
And you know what? It was the rare show of that era. It's become commonplace now, and Game of Thrones is making it into a major trend. It was the first one that was willing to kill off or name its main characters. It was the first one to say it. It doesn't matter how important you think this person is in the show. It's real life. This person might get shot.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting about it is it wasn't a bunch of pretty boys and models. It was people that looked like people.
Well, I still remember that's Francis ass. I mean, I didn't expect to see that on screen.
I've managed to forget that, but you've got your own problems.
It's seared into my memory, and I don't know what that says about it.
More recently, I think Breaking Bad is going to go down as one of the great series of all time. One of the things Breaking Bad did so well is knew when to leave. It did 5 seasons, I think, all tremendous, and just beautifully told. And so, did you watch Breaking Bad?
Oh yeah.
Twice. The fascinating thing with it that I'd never seen before, The Shield came a little bit close to it, which I also liked.
The Shield was amazing too.
To take a likable guy, a vulnerable guy, and slowly turn him into the devil.
Yeah.
And the show's creator, Vince Gilligan, would always say, I wanted to create a character that by the end of the run, nobody would like.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see when and if people stopped rooting for him.
Right.
Some people never did stop rooting for him, which is a fascinating experience.
You know what I found that the women who watched it ended up hating Skyler.
Well, yeah, she took a lot of heat, and she talked about this in a few times. She got a lot of hate mail, and that was fascinating too. She didn't do anything wrong.
She didn't.
And yet people saw her as the enemy because she was trying to stop him. That show was so fascinating in so many ways. It was great television to talk about. And I could talk about Breaking Bad all day, as opposed to Game of Thrones or The Walking Dead. They're nice shows, but there's no depth there. First of all, you mentioned Game of Thrones. Who wants that kingdom? How did I just jump off the cliff? Who wants that crap hole? That looks like a terrible, terrible place to rule. And I think it is about who lives and who dies. It's big.
It is. It is, and it's
beautifully shot.
It is beautiful, and it is compelling. It's not one of my top 10 shows of all time. It took me a while to get into it. I got into it more out of feeling of obligation to give it a chance. I am more interested in it now than I have ever been. But it's more spectacle than beautiful storytelling. And the ones that are beautiful storytelling are the ones that really stay with me.
Yeah, I wish there were more. I was thinking about this as I came over. I wish there was more serialized TV about sports. Friday Night Lights.
You know why there isn't?
Show.
Because there's so much reality. It's hard to do it at another level. It's hard to make TV sports. It's hard to make fictionalized sports as dramatic, as compelling, as real as the real sports you see every day.
Yeah, but I think you can use sports as the background. Friday Night Lights wasn't really about the game.
Right.
It was about small town life and what happens to people as they're growing up, dealing with bureaucracy. I don't know if you remember, we talked about Hill Street Blues, but do you remember Bay City Blues? Stephen
barely.
Boschko did that. Dennis Franz was in it as well before he returned to Hill Street Blues.
Huh.
It was a minor league baseball team. It only lasted a
I
season.
don't remember that. I really don't.
It's worth checking out. I don't know if you can get it on DVD. I guess you can get anything on DVD now. But it was, I remember one of the big storylines was a pitcher was bedridden. It was kind of had Hill Street Blues kind of dark comedy to it. It was interesting. But yeah, I wish some people would take more of a chance on it.
That's something I might actually look up. Well, I watch a lot of serial TV on flights, long flights.
Oh, sure.
It's a great way to pass the time.
What do you watch? What are your favorites?
Well, other than the ones you mentioned, the ones that jump to mind, Justified. I love Justified. I'm an Elmore Leonard fan. Neal. I mean, everything about that show was so authentic, so driven by place, by what it's like being in Kentucky. The characters are so vivid.
That's what I love about a television show. It takes you to a place you've never been to.
Yeah.
Like I love Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
I hadn't seen that world really on television that well done. I mean, that's exciting to me. It takes you to a different era or a different place.
And I got to say, I was afraid that Better Call Saul might not be that good. I think it's brilliant. I do. I think it's just incredible. And the nuance of character. With every character.
Yeah, that show surprised me too. I didn't think it would work.
I'm trying to think, what else do I really love? I mean, obviously, The Wire has always been right up there. Breaking Bad's always been up there. Usually, I have like this top 10 stuck in my head, and for some reason, The Shield I thought was very compelling. A friend of mine turned Tom Lennon, another friend of the program, turned me on to. Have you seen The Fall? Gillian Anderson.
I have not.
Just started watching it. It's really difficult to watch.
I heard the second season is a major failure.
Okay, well, I'm just on the second.
But I heard the first season was very good.
I'm through 2 episodes, and it is difficult to watch, but well done.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it's going to go. House of Cards, I thought was great for a season, and it's continued that worse ever since.
Yeah, it's not as smart as it thinks it is.
No, it really isn't.
These the politics of the Frank or whatever his name is.
Underwood.
They're not really that crafty.
No. And here's
like
the other thing. People striving is much more interesting than people holding on.
Yeah.
And when he's doing whatever it takes to become the president, he's fascinating. Once he becomes president, he's just another schmuck in office trying to worry about, favorability.
Yeah.
I
did go back and watch The West Wing last summer.
That's
went through the whole run, and I was reminded. It tapered a little bit when what's the writer's name? Aaron Sorkin left. But it was still pretty darn good. That's a very smart show, and I wish he got a little more credit. People don't really talk about it in the same way they talk about Hill Street Blues or Breaking Bad or NYPD Blue, but it deserves to be up there. It's very, very good show.
And in terms of comedies, I go back to Cheers and Frasier. Just so brilliantly written, such great.
I thought Cheers lost a step after Showing Wrong left.
Right, yeah, I think
it became much more of a farce then. But you go back to the first couple of seasons, it reminded me of Taxi. It had a lot of the same people.
Great.
Taxi is probably my favorite network comedy of all time. And MeTV is showing.
By the way, during the Blues series, we're in the locker room. We're in the St. Louis Blues locker room.
Yeah.
And, what's the name of the defenseman? Kind of a chubby-looking, black-haired defenseman. Shattenkirk. I'm blind talking. We looked over, and 2 of us go, that's Andy Kaufman's character in Taxi. It's Lockdown. He looks just like Lockdown. Sorry, I interrupted. But
I was going to say my other comedy go-to is the English version of The Office.
Really? Oh, yes, of course. How could I have forgotten that one?
There's only about 12, 13 episodes, but they're just all gems. They're just really, really good. The American version was fun.
Yeah, it was. A little more slapsticky, a little more silly, but The Office was just, it was precision satire.
It was cold on me. They made Steve Carell a lot more likable than Ricky Gervais' character.
Which is what I love about Ricky Gervais. He was willing to be the smarmiest SOB on the planet.
Yeah, and all his series I enjoy. You should see Life's Too Short. If you've ever seen that.
I have. I've watched a few episodes of Derek.
Derek is really surprised because he's playing such a sympathetic character. But Extras is very good too. I mean, everything he's been involved in, I really enjoy.
What do you think about our newspaper buying city papers?
I don't know what to think. didn't realize it was doing as well as they say it was doing. I think, a lot of people are talking about how City Page's identity is going to change with the ownership. I don't know what City Page's identity is right now. And I haven't known for a few years. They're using a lot of wire stories. They've cut back on sort of the edgy arts and entertainment stuff. They've cut back on cutting us. I mean, that was a big part of an all-weekly, was taking on the mainstream media.
Right.
And they haven't done that as much in the last few years. Is that because we're better?
I think
No.
because everybody is now on social media. There's no cachet. Everybody rips mainstream media now.
I guess so, but it always was, you had an established voice. We had David Brower doing it for a long time. He does it occasionally now, but he's not writing regularly for Mentos, which I think is that's bad for everyone. I mean, even if he's going to take us to task, sometimes we need that. So I don't know what City Pages is right now. A lot of their covers are not locally based anymore. I don't know. They're not going to be, from what I understand, they won't be reproducing stuff from our columnists and our writers. So I don't know how they're going to fill that paper and how I can describe. I mean, how would you describe City Pages? It doesn't feel very alternative.
No, it doesn't. It just feels like stuff that Start Green can't get to.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the niche.
It's not bad.
No.
But it's just.
When I first got to town, I read City Pages every edition.
Yeah,
and
and-
almost every word. Even if I didn't like the approach or the topic, I found it interesting.
Yeah, same here. And the reader was around when I got to town.
Right. It was very well done.
And even they were even edgier.
Yeah.
In some ways than City Pages was. Of course, I was younger than you. Maybe younger people.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe we're just really stinking old.
I mean, to me,
Aaron, is that the answer? We're just really old and boring at this
Yeah.
point? I think Aaron's saying yes.
I am sorry that Vitamin's going to go away. I really like that product. I thought those guys did a really good job. It was jazzy, it was punchy, and it had a lot of good content to it. I'm not
I like
sure
the
why
way
they
it
didn't
let
do
some
better.
of the... We have a great photography staff, too. I thought
Yeah.
those people could really
Our cover
stretch.
designers were really good. We had a couple of really good cover designers that did that section. So I'm sorry to see that go, but I hope that some of the writers that were in that paper will continue to write City Pages and help them, be a little more provocative, be a little more interesting. But I think anybody who's looking for Glenn Taylor, who owns both now, to go in there and fiddle with it, are going to be in for a surprise because, as you know, he really hasn't done anything to interfere, as far as I can tell,
As far as I can tell...
with our news content. I heard on the radio today somebody saying they thought maybe our editorial page got a little softer, more conservative. I don't see that, but
I will say if there's going to be a change made, I think that's where you see it. And I've heard third, fourth hand that would be Glenn's only interest is saying, hey, let's have a little more right wing in the opinion pages.
Well, he's only been at the paper in our new digs once, and that was last week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he just did a tour. His daughter is there once a week, and I think the influence of the Taylor is going to come through her. I haven't met her, but I've heard great things about her. Of course, I would say that even if I hadn't.
Of course. And Glenn hates me, so it'll be a really interesting career for me.
Does he really hate you?
Oh, I mean, there's nobody in this town I've ripped more than Glenn Taylor.
Yeah.
And I don't take a word of it back. And I ripped him after he bought the paper.
Right, remember that?
And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see how that goes.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. Well, hopefully we don't have to worry because the Timberwolves will be great.
Exactly. All I'll be doing is writing about the championship parades and what the route's going to be and what it's going to be about farm building. When I saw you at the Liffey recently when I was doing the show, and you mentioned, I think we ended up talking about Jon Stewart a little bit, how you kind of knew him when. Tell me what you know about Jon Stewart.
It's funny, I'm talking to a Daily Show producer tomorrow who's coming to town at Dudley Riggs.
Oh, you know what?
Four of the writers are...
And this is so classic. Russo's friends with that person. He's Russo's friends with everyone.
Yeah. And they're going to talk about writing for the Daily Show and working with John. I first interviewed John back when he had a syndicated show out of New York. It was very good. He'd just come off an MTV show, second talk show, I think. And I remember distinctly after the show, sitting in his office for so long that all the lights were turned off. We were the last ones to leave. And we were talking really intensely about talk shows, and he said, nobody's ever asked me this question. He said, you're going really deep, man. Which was a great compliment. And it's interesting to see how he progressed from this little silly show to this.
Just thought of another great serial TV show, Larry Sanders Show.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's a great
Sorry,
show.
just a little interruption there.
Yeah. John is, in many ways, I think probably a very demanding boss. Wants things a certain way. And I think sometimes he wants it both ways. Sometimes he wants to make a point and hold rallies and put people's feet to the fire. And then the next moment he'll say, hey, I'm just a comedian.
Yep.
And I don't think he is just a comedian, whether he wants to admit it or not. I think he's become a real force. And look at what working for him has done for Stephen Colbert and the guy who I think is hosting the funniest show on television right now, John Oliver.
Yeah.
That's a great show.
That's a great show.
I wish it was an hour, don't you?
Yes, absolutely. I always get to the end of the half hour, like, come on, you got something more, don't you?
Yeah. Anybody who's not watching that show is missing some of the funniest writing and sharpest observations. He is going deep on subjects that nobody else is.
He made standardized testing at elementary school.
That's right.
Fascinating.
Yeah. And I think, and I've talked to John Oliver several times about this. Stewart's a great teacher. He's a great mentor. I think I've been watching the Larry Wilmore show. It's taking a little bit, but it's very different. It's much more serious in tone. But you can see John's influence there. The big question is what is Jon Stewart going to do next?
Yeah.
He can't really do another talk show unless he does something more serious. But he's showed interest in film. So he's become a much more guarded guy, though, than when I first knew him. I don't pretend to know him as well as I did 20 years ago. And that happens sometimes. But I'm just fascinated with the Lakers world. It's kind of my favorite thing to watch. And, preparing for Letterman to go is emotional for me. I was 14 when we started doing television. That's an influential age. And that's going to be, for people my age, that's going to be a real sentimental journey the next couple of weeks.
It was really fascinating that Carson and Letterman, to the Giants in that world, their cachet was not feeling like they were Hollywood or not feeling like they were smooth stand-up comics. They were almost awkward socially.
Right.
And that kind of connection.
Yeah, I think we're in a different generation now. It's really interesting. You're right. Carson was very guarded, heavy drinker, bad in social situations. David, nobody sees him in parties. But this new breed, I've known Jimmy Kimmel since he was doing the Ben Stein show.
Right.
We became pretty close acquaintances over there. I had dinner with him last year. He's very social. I can email him now and get back in 5 minutes. Fallon, who I don't know as well, but is also very out there, very social. I don't know Stephen Colbert very well, but he's definitely... They're all friends, too.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because they're going up against each other. I don't know what it says about this generation, that these guys are more open than the old school. I think it just shows that David wanted to be Carson. And I think Conan did too, to a certain extent, even though it's probably too late. So they took their cue from Johnny. You don't go out there. You keep your privacy to yourself. I think David did that because Johnny did. But I don't think Fallon and these guys are as influenced by Letterman. Don't get me wrong. Letterman's the most influential comic mind of the last 30 years. I think you see his personality in a lot of stand-up comedies, which reminds me, not to go on a tangent, but the best comedy on television right now is Louie.
Oh, that's not. I've watched like the first 5 episodes of that. It's
First
incredible.
season?
Yeah.
Yeah, go on that ride. It's an incredible show where he writes and directs every episode, and you don't know where he's going to go. I mean, there's some dark episodes, They're just slapstick episodes. You're in for a real treat.
Yeah,
I
the
wish I
woman's
was watching
I
it
won't
first
I won't
time.
give too much of a spoiler alert here, but the woman's water breaking at the particular moment is very interesting. The time he broke that one woman's nose accidentally, that was very interesting. The woman sprinting away from him, jumping on a helicopter, surprised me. I have to say,
Yeah.
it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. There's so much good TV these days.
It really is. It's really a great time. There's a lot of crap out there too.
Well, and that's the nature.
Yeah, and again, going back to talking about Netflix and Amazon Prime, shows like Transparent is a great show.
Transparent. I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's Jeffrey Tambor from Arrested Development,
Oh.
and he's decided to become a transgender, and how his kids deal with it. It's a comedy, but it's pretty dark.
I love Jeffrey Tambor.
It won the Golden Globe, which is amazing for Amazon Prime, one of their first series to do that. There's a series coming out Friday called Frankie Grace with Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin.
Really?
It's pretty good. I watched the first 6 episodes, and these actors of a certain age, male and female, are not finding good film roles, and they're coming to television and doing really good stuff. It's really a great time. What needs to change, there needs to become more fun. If you're a college kid or in a low-paying job, you can't focus stuff.
I blame them. I have 2 kids still in college, and I was like, well, I can't watch it. I wait until they basically wait until everything's on Netflix to use my account. That's how they watch TV.
Yeah, I won't tell you.
Thank you. We only have a few minutes here left.
Yeah.
But so we probably don't have enough time to get into this deep, but I am interested in a quick take. Local TV. Where does local TV go? Because my pet theory, just my typical horseshit theory, is that newspapers are going to end up looking more like local TV. They're going to cover the major stories, the major sports. Unfortunately, the staff isn't going to be as large. There's not going to be much bureaucracy or oversight or layers. It's going to be more, a smaller group of people producing the news. And I think we're going to do that stuff like a news TV station, only better than a TV station. I'm wondering what happens to TV stations.
Well, people still get most of the news from local TV. It's amazing.
They really still do.
No.
I did not know that.
And they're still making a lot of money. Now, not as much as they were 15 years ago.
So they are still profitable.
Oh, yeah.
These are things I did not know.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people want to, Gannett is staying alive because of the TV stations. There's a lot of companies like that. I don't see local TV going anywhere. In fact, it may be more prominent going back to what we talked about before. That's something, again, you don't binge watch or tape and watch, a week from now. You got to watch it then and now. One thing that I'm interested in your take on, I know we don't have much more time, but I predicted a few years ago, more than a few years ago, that local sports would go away from the broadcast. There was no need for local sports anymore. That 6 or 7 minutes TV time is dedicated to it. Because I thought, well, ESPN is there. There's so many other venues to get your sports score. You know what the scores are. The local sports guy, the guy Joe Piscopo used to play at Channel 5, the loud jacket.
Who is actually much more understated than actual local sports guys.
Right. They were the big men on campus. Those guys are going away. I mean, Rosie is still a big name in this town. That's about it. There used to be in every market 3 or 4 guys that were big men on campus. They were among the biggest personalities in town. I think that's true anymore.
I agree with you, and I've wondered about that. I've actually talked to people with local teams who actually had that conversation with me. Like, what future is there for the local sports guy who tells you what the score is when you already know what the score is? And I almost think what I hate about local television might be what saves those positions, in that there are people out there are grandmas, there are casual sports fans who just want somebody to come on the air and actually tell them the score and say something nice about the local people.
Yeah.
Which I hate. I hate that whole approach. But I do think there's probably an audience for it.
There still is. Obviously, but for how much longer? I don't know the answer to that. Netflix is going to start streaming a news show, a daily news show. Let's see how that does.
Yeah.
Of course, we never know what works and what doesn't on Netflix because it won't release any numbers. So that's tricky. But, here's the thing about local TV, and those that are honest with you, and I'm not just saying this because you work for Star Tribune, they rely on the local newspaper a lot. They don't have much of a staff.
It would remind, them without the newspaper, it would be like that one Saturday Night Live episode where the teleprompters go out and they basically turn into wild animals.
Yeah. And one of the reasons people say, why does television concentrate so much on crime, shootings, and hit and run? It's not because if it bleeds, it leads. That's number. It's because the cops do the reporting for them.
Right.
They call the spokesperson, or they stand outside and they get the information, and it's the quickest way to get a story. They don't have the manpower or the time to go and do much in-depth reporting. Now, there are exceptions. And by the way, we have one of the best local TV markets in the country. You travel a lot.
Yes.
I travel quite a bit. You'd be surprised at how much better this market
especially
is.
in production.
And I'm talking about New York. I'm talking about LA.
New York's terrible.
New York's terrible. DC is terrible. LA is okay.
Dallas used to be good. I don't know what it's like these days.
I don't either. But people should be very grateful that live here. Now, could it be better? Absolutely. But we're pretty lucky.
Excellent. Man, I have like 18 other things I want to talk about, but I think we're kind of out of time, so I'm going to have to bribe you back at some point.
Sure, you have to.
Neal Justin from the Star Tribune. You can find his stuff in an actual newspaper. Yes, we produce an actual newspaper, or at startribune.com. Also at NEALJUSTIN on Twitter. Neal Justin on Twitter. And again, we'll have him back some other time to get into some more topics that I didn't get to today. We appreciate you listening to SouhanUnfiltered.com. Again, you can listen via iTunes, via iHeartRadio. We're going to continue our promotion. Nobody took advantage of it today, but we will be continuing our promotion where when we do a show at a Cara pub, either Kieran's, the local, or the Liffey, first 50 people to show up and retweet something about the show, get a free Guinness. And I think I owe Neal a free Guinness. Thanks for Brandon and Aaron helping me out with my continuing technical problems. It was fun, and we'll talk to Neal and everybody else soon. Thanks.